Hello and welcome to this short video on music. There is a difference between hearing music and listening to it. Hearers experience the music and its associations, but not the form of the music. Listeners, on the other hand, examine the formal or structural aspects of the music. Now let's turn to the elements of music. They are tone, consonance and dissonance, rhythm, tempo, melody, counterpoint, harmony, dynamics, and contrast. A tone is a sound with a definite frequency. Music is a series of tones, which are said to have color through the sounding of overtones or harmonic partials. The color of a tone is the product of a main frequency plus its harmonic partials. The overtones of a note give it a distinctive sound, which distinguishes an A played on a piano versus one played on a saxophone. Consonance is a pleasing combination of tones. Consonance can depend in large part on cultural norms. In one culture, a pleasing combination of tones might not be as pleasing or even displeasing to another culture. Dissonance is, as you might expect, a displeasing combination of tones, strongest when adjacent notes are played simultaneously. Rhythm refers to the temporal relationship between sounds, where the emphasis is placed on certain notes. Tempo, by contrast, is the speed at which notes are played, which can affect the tension in a piece of music. Melody is a musical phrase with a beginning, middle, and end. A melodic line is a vague melody with no clear boundaries. A theme is a variation on a melody that occurs later in a piece of music. And a motive or motif is the smallest unit of a theme. One famous example of a motif is the beginning of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Counterpoint is a series of staggered melodic lines used to create tension between competing forms in a piece of music. Harmony is the sounding of tones simultaneously as an accord, which is a group of notes traditionally played together. Dynamics are the loudness or softness of the sounds being played. Piano dynamics indicate a soft sound, while forte dynamics indicate a loud sound. A crescendo is a gradual build-up in loudness, while a decrescendo is a gradual decline in loudness. Finally, contrast consists of variations in the timbres or tonal differences of the instruments being played, the rhythm being employed, or the tempo of the piece. The subject matter of music can be sound or the feelings evoked by sound. Feelings can be defined as emotions, passions, and moods. Some have suggested that there is a similarity between the structures of music and emotions, which may help explain why music can embed itself in our memories of how a certain time in our lives felt. However, music can also just be about the sounds being made. In other words, pure sound relationships. There are two major theories of music that we should discuss briefly. The first is formalism, which argues that music has no relationship to non-musical experience and is thus pure form. Expressionism, on the other hand, argues that music evokes feelings and communicates those feelings to others. A composition that is written in a particular key, or group of tones that make up a scale of notes, has a tonal center known as a tonic. All of the notes in a scale produce a certain amount of tension except the tonic, which is returned to in order to release the tension built up during a piece of music. Let's take a listen to one example of a piece with a clear tonal center. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot ends with the tonic note when the vocalist sings the last word, home.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home.
Let's turn now to some musical structures that have been common in the history of Western music. A theme plus variations is a popular structure in classical music, especially in the 17th century. First, you have a well defined melody that is varied throughout the piece before finally being returned to at the piece's closing. A rondo is a series of musical sections that features an initial melody and possibly some development of that melody, a new melody, and then a return to the initial melody, another new melody, repeating this pattern until an eventual ending with the initial melody again. A fugue is an overlapping series of melodic lines. A good example of this type of structure is the children's song Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Sonata form is more complex in that it has an expository section that sets out a theme that is somewhat developed, a second section in which the theme is developed in a new key, and a final section in which the original theme is returned to in the tonic key, which indicates closure. This form is used extensively in symphonies. Finally, a symphony is a four-movement structure that employs the sonata form in its first and final movements, with the intermediate movements providing variations in timbre, harmonies, and melodies. Take a listen to one of my favorite symphonic movements, the second movement from Brahms's Symphony No. 4. Last but not least, let's take a look at some popular forms of music that are prevalent in the contemporary world. First, we have blues music, which doesn't refer to the emotional content of the music so much as it refers to the blue notes used to play the music. Blue notes are played at a slightly different pitch than standard and lend the blues scales their distinctive sound. The blues is vitally important, as it is the basis for many popular music styles. Next, we have jazz, which is basically musical improvisation based on an original theme. Musicians play without sheet music and often compete with one another during a performance to showcase their virtuosity. Many types of jazz have developed over the years, quite a few being the product of the experimentation of Miles Davis. I encourage you to listen to one of Davis's most famous recordings, Kind of Blue. You may even recognize the initial themes as they have been used many times over in popular media. Rock and roll is a countercultural art form. It is the music of youth and rebellion. Rock and roll was originally a reference not only to the raucous movements inspired by the rhythm of the music, but also sex. Rock has been particularly successful at generating new styles of music, as evidenced by a cursory examination of its history over the past 8 decades. Finally, rap has emerged as a new and evolving art form, younger than other styles of music, but no less revolutionary. Rap has been controversial at times, accused of being misogynistic and racist, but it also has the power to be subversive and serve as a protest against injustice. That's about all the time we have for this lecture. Thank you, and see you soon.